everyone, welcome to another Classic Movie Monday, and today I thought it would be interesting to dive into something that is Disney again, and I think that love plays a sort of central role when it comes to this film, and that's why I'm sort of making it a part of my love month that'll be ending this week. So without further ado, let me briefly address Bambi. Yes, this is one of the more iconic as well as memorable Disney films that has come out over the years. It's probably one of those films that people remember the most in the sense that there's just a lot of different things that are a part of this film that I think are sort of central to what makes Disney so good as a company, especially in the earlier days when Walt was still alive. So I'm going to kind of go over with you my thoughts in regards to this film and sort of give you my personal opinion as well as provide you some background into the film as well. It's one of those classics where you have to kind of you have to take it for what it is, in the sense that it's simple, but it's something that I think people can appreciate. And again, I think that requires seeing this film not as often. This is one of those classics where you probably couldn't see consecutively for a consistent amount of time, but every once in a while, when you pop it in to the DVD player, in my case back in the day it was the VHS. Probably now it's streaming, which is Netflix, but it's just one of those films where you have to you have to see it once in a while in order, I think, to really appreciate it. And you have to kind of be in that mood. You want to be in this natural kind of animal setting. You want to sort of experience the emotion and artistry of animation. You have to be in that kind of setting and that place within time in order to, I think, really enjoy what Bambi has to offer as a film. And that's why I consider it to be a classic, because it is unique. It's not like a lot of other Disney films or even a lot of other animated films at that. And I think it has a lot of things within it that sort of drift away from something that we consider, it's definitely a time when it definitely came out during a time when animation was treated more of as an art form. Now it's treated more as sort of a, more cartoon art form. Like it's goofy, it's colorful, it's eccentric, it's wild. But with Bambi, there's just a lot more simplicity to it, but there's a lot of things that you can take in visually within the animation. Now we're more focused on story and characters and not necessarily about the artistry, and that's something that I think you can really appreciate about Bambi. Despite it having certain simplicities to it, there's still a lot of depth with its artistry and its visuals. So I think that's something that I think needs to be taken into account if you are considering watching this film. Also, the emphasis of love in this case is on family. Sort of similar to Pinocchio, but yet different, in that with Pinocchio, it was more of a journey for self-discovery in order to obtain virtue and love. Whereas with this film, the love is largely developed, and it's primarily the focus of the film. In particular, the love that Bambi and his mom share with one another. And I think this is why the particular death that ends up happening within the film. I won't spoil who dies in case nobody's seen it, but I'm betting pretty much a lot of my audience have seen this film. But the thing about the death scene is that it was the first time that sort of Walt took this sort of raw, nature-driven approach to the story, because Bambi's mother is his primary caregiver and and nurturing figure throughout the film. And when death ends up occurring to one of the characters, you see how it significantly alters the film and it impacts the film. And a lot of people remember the scene because usually when children see death, it impacts them in a way that it wouldn't when they're an adult. And I think this film created a very adult approach to it. And I think it really worked to the film's advantage. And it's just one of those things where, there's no resurrection or any of that. It's just the person just disappears off screen. You don't ever see them again. So, and I think that's a really raw understanding of death that I think the film really captured. And you see how the pain ends up resulting because of the love that the mother and the son had for one another. And also, I like, again, going back to sort of the natural, like how visually it displays nature. Bambi is just one of those films where it kind of knows how to deal with the animal kingdom in the sense that it understands how the animal kingdom sort of operates. Because we do feel like, there is this sense of human nature that I guess you could say is part of Bambi, in particular his mom and the relationship they have together. It seems a little bit more humanistic. But the setting that they're in is largely based within that animal struggle for survival. And I find it interesting, and I think sort of a part of the way in which the animal kingdom kind of operates is that the dad is usually never around and the mom is the primary person who takes care of the child. Now obviously with humans this is completely different. It's not like, he goes off away and pretty much stays separated from the mom. But that's sort of part of how the animal kingdom, in particular the deer, I guess, just animal kingdom operates. It's largely the females are the caregivers, and the males just go, okay, had a kid, bye bye. Now you take care of kid now, and I'll go leave. So yeah, that's kind of how it's showcased within the film, because Bambi's dad is really not there all that much. But he does kind of come in relatively later on within the film once Bambi gets older. So he sort of ends up playing maybe a more human role later on. But he's primarily separated from his son through the majority of the film. Usually he comes to him if there's like a danger or a need to survive. But he's not really all that. He's not really all that present in his son's life. So yeah, that's just kind of how it treats the whole relationship dynamic between sort of that family, so to speak. And I like how it is sort of a coming of age story. it's really Disney's first ever really coming of age story, unless you kind of count Pinocchio as this was, growing up, sort of, so to speak, I guess, throughout, is partially part of that narrative too. But Bambi's feels a little bit more like an actual coming of age story, because we see him as a child, and then we see him as he grows up, and so on and so forth. So we see his involvement. And some people might say that the innocence within this film is a little bit too off-putting, and that it doesn't allow the audience to get engaged because, oh, it's so cutesy, and why do we have to sit through the cutesy? And again, I think largely that has to do with mood. You have to be, I think, in the right mood to really enjoy Bambi, because there's just something about this film where if you get it into the right, if you're in the right mood for something like it, you can really enjoy it. So that's why I say it's a very mood-driven piece, because there's just a lot of things that are just conveyed artistically that I think a viewer can appreciate if he or she is in the right mood for it. And even though there's cutesiness to it, I think there is sort of a purpose to it. And again, it is trying to appeal to children. Again, this is not just adult serving. I like how it has a certain amount of charm. Again, sometimes the cutesiness can drag, but I think that's understandable for their marketing and for their demographics. I think those really cover all of the points when it comes to Bambi. As far as it just being, as far as plot goes, despite it just being about a deer growing up named Bambi, and also it focusing on his relationship with his mother deer, there's a lot of other little side characters that sort of make appearances, like an owl, and Thumper, who's a rabbit, and then a skunk also. So there's a lot of little cutesy things that Disney tries to put into it that I think work fairly well. I mean, it gives a balanced sort of tone to it. And there is still some heavy material in it. Some people think that this is all just sunshine and rainbows film, but it really has some heavy things, and that's just not the death scene. I mean, there's other scenes where it gets pretty intense, or you just see the colors change, and then all of a sudden it just feels very, there's this sense of cruelty to it, I think, as well. And I think that ties in well with its setting because, again, it takes place in the wild. It takes place within nature, and nature is sort of unpredictable, and sometimes it can be violent, sometimes it can be cruel, sometimes it's not, again, all sunshine and roses and rainbows. So, yeah, I think if you just take it from that angle, you'll see that there's a lot of different elements within Bambi, and I think a lot of it really works to the film's advantage. It has beautiful music. It has amazing visuals. The characters are likable. Bambi's likable. All of the other side characters are somewhat enjoyable. But again, they're not really the primary focus. They're just kind of there in the background. And you sort of see how ultimately the focus is just sort of on life itself. It's not designed to be on, just the life of Bambi, but kind of, just more, I think, life in general, and life in the sense of how, nature is sort of built in within our psyche, so to speak, even as humans. So I think if you go into those natural routes and you see the film in that respect, then I think it can be very enjoyable. And that's really what I take away a lot of the time with Bambi is I just see this kind of this just this beautiful artwork of a representation of life. Um, and again, because Bambi is supposed to be sort of a blank slate character, he's not designed to be a very in-depth character, but we see him go through various experiences, and that's the idea, is that it's taking you into the experience of life, and in doing so, putting it in a very nature oriented setting. But I think that's really ultimately all I can say when it comes to Bambi. I think there's a lot to recommend when it comes to this film. I understand if it is not for some audiences. I think it is very niche, especially considering nowadays where kids' entertainment is totally different from older children's entertainment, but I think there's still a lot that kids even nowadays can enjoy from a film like this, and I think there's a lot that adults can enjoy about this. Is it something that you're gonna constantly put on? Does it have that kind of marketability factor? Not really. It's not like something like Lion King or Beauty and the Beast. But it does have a lot of good things about it, and I think makes it one of the more memorable ones, even if you don't watch it as often, which I would say I don't really watch this film all that often, but when I do, I find some great appreciation for it. It's sort of the same with Fantasia, too. It's very artistic. You have to be in the kind of mood for it. You have to be in that, I just want to be swept away to this, to the sense of beauty and wonder, be whisked away to all of these different emotions. It's that kind of a film. But if you just want clear cut, which is basically today's standard film, that basically is within modern animation as well as within live action filmmaking. Again, there's probably not a whole lot that you can enjoy about it, but I think there's still a lot to appreciate from this film, despite what people might say about it. But ultimately, I think, though, that's really all I can discuss when it comes to this film. But again, if there are any questions, comments, concerns, be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.